We came, we saw, he died. Some kind of strange channeling of Caesar. And I think this is a little bit more important. There is the hyperlink. Of course, I'll put that in there. Because I think that it demonstrates how Hillary sees herself and how Hillary sees the United States. Um, Hillary is not running for the presidency. Hillary is running for empress. She sees the United States in terms of a neo-colonial New Roman Empire. And this is one of many examples that you will see in her life of her directly channeling like Roman military orthodoxy. It's what Caesar said. Well, it's a twisted version of what Caesar said when he conquered. Was it Gaul? Yeah, it was Gaul. Which was we saw, we conquered. Veni Vidi Vici, or whatever it was. Twisted language aside, I mean, she's clearly attempting to present herself in the terms of a general emperor type thing, right? And it brings into the whole it brings the whole concept of conquering provinces. You have to know a little bit about Roman history to kind of get this, and this is why this is it's scary and everything. Just I mean, just like you can have a very very negative gut reaction from watching this, right? It's freaky, but if you actually understand what she's channeling and the whole Roman history, it just gets that much creepier. This is obviously a complicated thing. I don't know how well I can do this off the I didn't write any of this down again. I'm just ranting off the cuff here. But there was an idea, and whether this was an idea that the Roman emperors themselves realized, or whether it was something that Roman historians created and then it became, a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will. It is harder to disentangle, but there's a narrative through Roman history of emperors conquering territories and adding them to the empire, either right before they become emperor or right after they become emperor. And it's a pattern that develops. So they go out and they prove the glory of the empire. They demonstrate their war victories, and then they say things like we came, we saw, and we conquered. So when you put that quote in the proper context, what you're understanding is the way that Clinton sees the United States is as a global hegemon, a global empire, and there really hasn't been anybody quite like that yet. We can argue when this shift, from republic to empire happened, maybe sometime a little after World War II, and it would have taken a generation or two for the mindset to really kind of flip over, for the switch to really flip, right? So, I mean, and in that context, you want to think of Reagan not as the beginning of something, but as the end of something. Reagan was the last really old. Well, I mean, I guess maybe you've got George H.W. Bush as well. And I mean, it was, let us not forget, Bush the first that called for the New World Order, right? And so maybe we can build the beginnings of that in there. But Bill Clinton didn't really see that. In fact, if anything, Bill Clinton seemed to kind of reject that, right? He was kind of right in the middle of things, right? But he seemed more interested in kind of maintaining a defensive posture. I don't think. I mean, in a lot of ways, the world that we live in was created by Bill Clinton, but in a lot of ways, he was trying to kind of prevent things from happening the way that they happened as well. Um, and depending on where you are on the spectrum, you can criticize him from either direction, right? You could say that he didn't put enough money into the military, or you could say that he didn't work hard enough to stop what happened and the trajectory that things were going down, right? I think Bush was actually at heart, he was an isolationist. I don't think he wanted any of what happened, and whether you take the false flag narrative of history or the official narrative of history, I think that either narrative places Bush in a situation he did not want to be in. I remember one of the things that he said when he was running for election is that he's not a nation builder. He really didn't want to be involved in any of that. He wanted to focus on domestic policies, and he didn't care about. There was a skit floating around when he was running for election as well, where he didn't. People were asking him like who's the Prime Minister of India, and he couldn't answer the question, right? And that was a big joke, right? So Bush didn't see himself in the terms of an empire either, right? And I don't really think that Obama does either. I think maybe Obama might see himself in terms of he might see the United States as a global leader kind of thing, but I don't think he sees America as a hegemon. Clinton is probably the first serious presidential candidate that we've ever had that seriously sees America as an empire, and interprets that as more than a pejorative or more than language to avoid, right? America has historically attempted to avoid calling itself an empire because it wants to be seen as a democracy, right? The opposite of empire, right? I mean, it doesn't take a lot of insight to realize that has not been true for at least 100 years, at least. But nonetheless, there's still that narrative in the United States, right? The closest that anything has come to it is the whole manifest destiny. But the concept of manifest destiny is intrinsically anti-imperialist, right? Clinton, I think, is very much of a different mindset. She sees things as they are. There's not any cognitive dissonance in her mind. She understands America's an empire. She's trying to use lessons from Roman history to try to manipulate public opinion in ways that are very creepily reminiscent of what a Roman senator would have done. And I think that her policy will be openly imperialistic as a reflection of that. Something I said in my last, deeper analysis was did I just lose my train of thought there? I did. I think I was trying to say that something I said in my last train of thought, or my last deeper analysis was that, yeah, that's right. That's right. Is that I had supported Clinton in the 2008 primaries. I mean, it's moral support. I'm a Canadian, but I was able to see as the process was unfolding that the establishment had rejected her, that the establishment had said, okay, we're going behind this Obama guy, that Obama was running to the right. So I mean, there were the banks preferred him for. I think probably the difference in healthcare policies was probably a big part of it. It's probably a big part of the reason why Hillary is not supporting a single payer system anymore. But I was able to see what was happening, but I wasn't able to see the wisdom in it. And what we've seen over the last couple of years is what Clinton would be like if she was actually in power. And it's not a particularly appealing prospect. Just the open, blatant, bare concept of imperialism that she has is it's creepy. Okay, whether you're talking about the way that she went into Libya and the whole. I would love this to have like a real Roman historian really delve into this. Like do some some really serious research into what happened in Libya, and then draw those comparisons, to the whole concept of bringing in a province into the empire as a tactic of appealing to the masses kind of thing, and how neurotic that is, in an attempt to try to apply that to today's reality. Whatever Romans thought, 1,500 to 2,000 years ago, is one thing, but I think it's pretty clear that most Americans don't like the expenses involved in war. They don't feel that tinge of nationalism and get worked up so much as they get frustrated. There's a legitimate fear that's been installed in people of the scary people that want to kill us kind of thing. But there's not a legitimate desire to fight. And when we defeat a foreign power and add their realms to our empire, we don't get this groundswell of nationalism, right? In any sense, except that, okay, great, now we can bring our guys home, right? But to really analyze that and point out how neurotic and almost schizophrenic it is, right? And then to bring in the age of pivot, this is going to be, if she wins, it's going to be a very militarized presidency. And I think if that's what people want, great, but let's make sure we understand it, okay? So it's a short clip. It speaks for itself on some level. On some level, it requires a very deep analysis. What I've given you here is very cursory. Hopefully someone else can expand on this and do a better job.